Welcome home, Scott.
Petunia. Hey. Petunia Marie. Petunia, who's this?
Oh, there she is.
When Scott Baldwin was released from prison in October of 2025, we were there to pick him up. We got him inside the home where he would live with his wife and their dog, Petunia, and helped him get into his recliner so he could rest, while Petunia tried her best to convince Scott that she was a lapdog.
Oh, there she is. Oh. All right, you can't lay at daddy like that.
I'd been hoping to update Scott on some of what we'd found in his case. The day before his release, Jacinda and I had been in Kalamazoo, and we were excited to tell him about some of what we found there. But he was so tired, it wasn't the time for it.
Well, I won't bore you with the details, but we've had a good day yesterday investigating. That's good stuff.
Oh, done it.
Even though Scott was home now, his case was not over. There was still work to be done. He still wanted to be exonerated.
You know, he's not being released as an innocent person. His release didn't even have anything to do with innocence. It had to do with the judge looking at a person who's clearly dying and saying, you know what, I think it's okay for him to go home and die with his family.
That's Olivia Vigiletti. She is Scott's attorney with Michigan Innocence Clinic. After we'd started working on Scott's case for proof, Michigan Innocence had taken on Scott as a client. Olivia had been there too to pick Scott up from prison. And after we'd gotten him inside his new home and he'd fallen asleep in the recliner, we'd all gone outside to talk where we wouldn't disturb him.
I'll say even other releases I've been to where the person is very, very sick has still been quite joyous. But I think here what we saw is a deep realization that Scott can do very little for himself right now. This is a particularly difficult case to grapple with. He didn't get to walk out of prison. He had to be pushed out of prison. And so when people imagine that moment of stepping out of those doors, I'm sure none of this is what he imagined.
What Scott had imagined for 25 years was being legally exonerated and walking out an innocent man. Instead, we spent most of the day of his release trying to figure out how to get him enrolled in hospice care.
So many things went wrong for Scott. Of course, his life was taken from him. Of course, this shouldn't have happened. When we were working on the resentencing case, I put together a memo of, why I believe in Scott's innocence. And what I said to the judge was that I don't think I have time to verify and prepare a post-conviction motion around these claims because in Michigan, you have to be alive to litigate that motion. So even if I got it filed tomorrow, I don't think it's very likely that Scott would be here to see the result.
Standing there in Scott's yard, we all knew now that there was no hope of Scott living long enough to be exonerated. Scott knew that too. So where did that leave the fight to prove his innocence?
We had sort of a frank conversation right after the resentencing where I asked him, okay, you're coming home now, so what would you like me to do? Would you like to kind of just set this down? Would you like me to step back? Would you like me to keep fighting the case, fighting for your innocence? And he was like, as long as you're willing, please continue to try to find evidence of my innocence.
You still willing?
Yes, absolutely.
We were still willing too. To investigate Scott's case, we needed to go back to the beginning. Back to 1988, and back to Kalamazoo Cycle, the bike shop where Earl O'Byrne was murdered. We needed to find out everything we could about the crime that Scott Baldwin was convicted of committing. I'm Susan Simpson.
And I'm Jacinda Davis.
I'm an attorney and investigator.
And I'm a true crime TV producer.
And this is Proof Season 3, Murder at the Bike Shop. Proof is a Red Marble Media production in association with Glassbox Media.
New episodes are released on Mondays, and on Thursdays you can catch our sidebar episodes where we talk about the case, talk to guests, and tell you more about what's going on behind the scenes.
This is Episode 2, Kalamazoo Cycle.
On the morning of June 3rd, 1988, 83-year-old Earl O'Byrne was found beaten to death inside his bike shop. The presumed motive was robbery. The case went unsolved for 12 years. Then, in 2000, the Kalamazoo cold case team reopened the investigation. They concluded that the killer was a 31-year-old father of 4 named Scott Baldwin. As a young teenager, Scott had worked at the bike shop. It was a part-time job he'd had just for a few months. But the cold case team believed that 5 years later, when he was 19, Scott had gone back to rob the shop in the middle of the night. And in the process, he had killed Earl O'Byrne out of fear that Earl had recognized him.
So this was a robbery. Scott went there to rob Earl O'Byrne. How do you think Scott got into the bike shop?
I don't know. I doubt that it was very well secured.
That's cold case detective Rich Madison. He was one of the lead investigators on the case. He told us he was certain that Scott had killed Earl O'Byrne. So somehow or another, Scott must have managed to get inside the shop that night. But there was no sign of any break-in.
Like, the only way to get in is for Earl to open the door. There's no break-in. So how would Scott have gotten in?
How does anybody get in?
Do you remember Karen Raymond, the manager that was like...
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, she had worked for him for years and years and years. And
He opened the door and somebody came in and robbed him. That's what I was told. Somebody came in and robbed him.
That's Karen Raymond. She worked at the bike shop, and she was also pretty much the closest thing to family that Earl O'Byrne had.
But it never made sense to me. Like, I couldn't picture it as a story because it just didn't make sense.
When we spoke to Karen, she told us that, even all these years later, she doesn't quite understand how the man convicted of Earl's murder could have done it.
And I wasn't much help in the cold case because...
Did they tell you that?
Well, no. He was very nice. But my beliefs were different than maybe what the facts were showing. He thought Earl had opened the door. I don't think I believed it at the time. I don't think I believe it now. My beliefs were there was only certain people that Earl would work with and trust.
So Scott Baldwin, would Earl have opened the door for him?
No.
Like, is there anything this guy could have done to convince him to open the door?
No. Earl had the people that he trusted. And it wouldn't have been somebody that worked there a short time. So there's a lot of things that just don't make sense, right?
That's kind of why we're looking at the case. We spoke to Karen at the end of a 10-day investigative trip to Kalamazoo. A trip on which, as you've probably noticed, I lost my voice and could barely speak above a whisper. Yeah, not ideal, but that's how it goes sometimes. Karen told us that she'd begun working at the bike shop in 1982 when she was 16 years old. So the first time you walked into the shop, you're in high school. What do you think about what you see there?
I was a little nervous. I mean, the bike shop was unique. So I've never seen anything like it.
A lot of high school kids come and go at this place. How did you end up sticking around?
I think I started to care about him. You know, I developed a relationship. I just cared about him. They were good men.
What was your job at the bike shop?
If you had to have a title, later on, I would say I managed it. But I had power of attorney for Earl, so I was more of a caretaker, maybe.
Johnny O'Byrne was born in 1899. His little brother Earl was born in 1905. Their family lived just east of downtown Kalamazoo in a little white house by the river. Earl and Johnny opened up the bike shop sometime in the 1920s, after their father died. The shop itself was a big brick warehouse attached to the back of the house they lived in. The brothers would continue to live and work there for the next 60-plus years. Neither brother ever married or moved away from the house/bike shop they'd grown up in. They were each other's best friend, and the world was their shop. And you don't really have a sense of why they never left?
I think just the way their family and the way they were brought up, they never wanted to leave. And I think it just morphed into his business.
Did they have any friends that you can remember now? Outside of their employees, like outside of the shop?
Not so much friends in the word terminology of friendship.
Earl and Johnny didn't have any family, and they didn't really have any friends. But they did have a lot of employees. We spoke to many of them, and they told us what working at the bike shop had been like.
Earl, he was known for giving kids their first jobs because he would hire 14 to 16-year-olds to do little things around there and whatnot.
So many people had the same story as me, like that was their first job, or they would work there for a few weeks. Very few of us actually stuck it out for any length of time.
They kind of took me under their wing, but I mean, I was a good worker. They treated me great.
Okay.
Earl, not so sometimes, but...
One of the former teenage employees we spoke to was Rick, who started working at the bike shop in the early 80s. He told us how both Earl and Johnny had always worn the exact same outfit, green overalls and a cap. I showed him a photo we'd come across of Johnny and Earl sitting side by side in the bike shop. It was the first time he'd seen them in decades. All right, here's one photo.
Oh, my God.
Does that bring back memories?
I damn near gave me tears in my eyes for that one. And there's that green hat. That might even been the same hat.
Probably.
Holy. And Johnny. Johnny was huge. And there's Earl's mean ass fucking look. Oh my God. You know, Earl was a tightwad. he was a penny pincher. He was, Earl was funny, but Johnny, he was a good guy.
Some employees said Earl could be difficult to work with, but Karen Raymond told us that in her years at the bike shop, she'd grown quite fond of him.
Earl, he was like a grandpa to me. More so than Johnny. I liked Johnny a lot, but I had a relationship with Earl.
I did see you quoted in one of the Kalamazoo Gazette articles, calling him a flirt.
Yep, he loved his ladies. He knew how to turn the charm on.
Karen showed us another photo she had, one just of Earl sitting by himself in the cluttered bike shop. And in this photo, there's a big smile on his face.
Like I said, I look back sometimes at that and think, I don't know. He was like a grandfather to me, though. You hear that everybody's saying he was a curmudgeon, but you look at that picture. That's my Earl right there. That's my Earl.
After 3 years of working at the bike shop, when she was only 19 years old, Earl gave Karen Raymond power of attorney and effectively made her manager of the store, even though there were other employees at the bike shop who'd been there longer and who had more experience than her.
Yeah, there was a lot of bitterness on that end of me being power of attorney. Earl favored me, and I think that upset some people that had been there a while.
Can I ask who?
James was one, for sure. Wilma.
Wilma and James had started working at the bike shop when they were 14 years old, back in 1950 and 1960, respectively. Karen recognizes why the old-timers at the bike shop might not have appreciated her being promoted above them. But Earl and Johnny had needed someone to help care for them, and she'd stepped up for the role.
There might have been some thought that I was in it for the money. And I certainly wasn't.
In the summer of 1985, Johnny O'Byrne developed pneumonia. He was taken to the hospital. It was Karen who drove Earl there to see his brother.
That's what I drove Earl to the hospital in, was that little red two-seater. And nobody thought I should, because he wasn't very clean. But driving in a car, everything amazed him.
When's the last time you think Earl left the property?
That was it. That was the only time I've ever seen Earl leave.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
So he never left? Not to go to the bank, not to...
No. Not to go grocery shopping, not to do
okay.
anything. He didn't. He was a fixture right there. I mean, he would walk down the alley a little bit, but not even that, really.
That trip to the hospital was the last time Earl ever left the bike shop. And it was the last time his brother Johnny ever left, too.
It broke his heart when Johnny died. They were together always.
Once his brother passed away, he kind of got worse, because they were inseparable. They'd been in that house their whole life.
That's Lori Scott, another bike shop employee. She told us what the bike shop had been like back in 1988 when she worked there. No one uses the word hoarder in the files.
I don't think hoarder was used back in the 80s, but he was definitely a hoarder. Where he lived inside the bike shop, it was a lot of trash.
The crime scene photos of the bike shop are almost overwhelming. It's a struggle to visually process what you're seeing amidst all the clutter.
Full to the brim, full to the ceiling in some places. Chaos. There's not a lot of organization there. Piles of stuff right to the ceiling almost.
Employees kept the bike shop portion of the building functional, more or less. It was packed, but you could move around. Inside the attached house where Earl lived, things were different. Every room was packed to the gills, and Earl's bedroom may have been the worst of all. There's no bed, no furniture, just piles of paper several feet deep, covering every inch of floor space.
It looks, from the pictures we have, looks like he's laying on a stack of newspapers.
That's what you think, but that was his bed.
Much of what Earl had collected and stored in towering piles throughout the bike shop would be regarded by others as trash. And yet, Lori told us, the bike shop had frequently been targeted by thieves. Did Earl seem like he had money?
He had some stocks, but you would never know it. But to be rich, no, he wasn't a rich person. From what I understand from James, they were always trying to break in, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It wasn't a real hot neighborhood around there, and they were always trying to break in at night.
There was even a time in 1984 when someone had succeeded and gotten into the bike shop.
One time, Earl got beat up by a kid that he fired, and that's why he was real leery. He was just terrified from that.
The attack by the former employee happened 4 years before Earl O'Byrne was killed. The teenager had gotten into the bike shop and snuck up on Earl, beating him in the head with a pool cue. Earl had needed 27 stitches to close the wounds. Afterwards, Earl had installed an alarm system and reinforced all the windows with security bars to make sure that no one else ever got in. But why would anyone be trying to rob the bike shop in the first place? When we'd started talking to Scott Baldwin about his case, this was something we hadn't understood.
Because one of the questions I always had was like, why would someone want to rob a bike shop?
Because there was rumored to be millions of dollars there hidden.
Like most people in Kalamazoo, Scott had heard rumors about Earl and Johnny hiding cash inside the bike shop. Scott told us he didn't think those rumors were actually true, though.
Everybody speculated that there was millions of dollars hidden in the bike shop. But us kids that worked there knew better.
There was at least some truth to those rumors, though, Karen told us.
I saw him come out with money.
So he did just keep cash somewhere in there.
But I, when I talked to him about it, because that's a dangerous thing, he said it was all gone.
Yeah, well, whether true or not, the rumors existed, and that's dangerous by itself.
It is. Yeah.
Due to the history of break-in attempts, every evening when the last employee left for the day, Earl would go through a careful routine to ensure that the shop had been securely locked up. Was Earl security conscious?
Extremely. I mean, when I would get ready to leave, he would walk me to the entry door and shine his little flashlight out and look and look and looked all around. Then he'd unlock the door and he'd let me out, and he would shine the flashlight as a walkway all the way to my car.
And would you then wait for him to shut the door?
Oh, yeah. He'd lock me out.
There were 7 locks in total. Earl would lock all of them. 3 deadbolts on the shop entrance, and 3 more deadbolts on the door leading to the attached house where Earl slept at night. Plus, on the front door, there was a steel sliding bar that he would shove into place, making it so the shop could not be completely unlocked from the outside. Only someone inside could remove that bar. It should have been enough to keep anyone out, but somehow it wasn't. On the night Earl O'Byrne was killed, someone managed to get in.
On the morning of June 3rd, 1988, employees James Long and Lori Scott arrived at the bike shop together and got ready to open for the day. It was just before 9 a.m. when they went inside. All 3 deadbolts were locked on the front door, just like normal.
The bar was already moved, which it usually is. Earl would get up early and he'd move that bar so we could get in. James unlocked the door, but it was kind of weird. Something was telling me to look down. I looked down and I could see blood spots. So I said to James, I said, look at this. And he turned around and he said, oh, Earl probably cut himself or something. So we walked in a little bit farther, and a bunch of bicycles had been knocked down. So James said, oh, I wonder if somebody tried to break in. I'm going to go check. Well, I went in to check on Earl, and there was a hole in his door. And I kind of looked in there and I could see blood on the sink. So I unlocked it. I went around, excuse me, this is not real easy to say. I went around to his bedroom and I could see his feet sticking out. His arm was like up in the air, kind of like he was in rigor mortis type thing. I didn't touch him, I just ran out, screamed for James and called 911. The police were there pretty much immediately, and that's when they made us go out. I called Karen because Karen was, basically his caretaker. She showed up probably within a half an hour.
He told me I had to get there right away, so that's what I did.
Did they tell you what happened to him?
That he opened the door and somebody came in and robbed him.
When you got to the shop, what did you see?
People standing around outside.
Yeah, it's still upsetting.
Talk about it.
No, it's okay.
They were outside, and there was a little, I don't want to say negativity. Anyway, the police immediately started talking to me, and I saw him coming out. Nobody knew what to do.
Did you see blood at the scene?
Oh, yeah. Oh, the walkway, the desk area, right into the green room and right into all the way into his bedroom.
There wasn't much blood up front by the entrance, but as you walked deeper into the store, the trails of blood became heavier and heavier until they turned into pools of blood.
Did you ever hear about where the fight seems to have happened, or?
Well, from what we could tell, it was kind of by the bathroom because we saw there was some blood there and stuff.
There were signs of some kind of struggle in the bike shop's main storeroom, but the fatal attack on Earl O'Byrne had taken place in a dead-end hallway leading to the employee bathroom. There, Earl had fallen to the floor, and someone had struck him in the head repeatedly. From the bathroom hallway, the blood trail continued back to the main sales room, where some bikes that had been overturned were laying in the aisle. Earl's ball cap lay on the floor underneath them. It must have fallen off at some point during the struggle. From there, the trail continued into the attached house. Earl had made his way to a storage room, and then through the cluttered kitchen and into the room that served as the bike shop's office. Earl must have sat down at the desk there and tried to stop the bleeding.
That trail I just showed you, there was a paper towel where he was mopping his head.
Bloody paper towels are stacked on the desk in front of where he must have sat for a time. Eventually, though, Earl made his way to the room where he slept. He had climbed onto the stack of newspapers, gone to sleep, and never woke up again.
That's where he was laying when I walked in. That's when I kind of went a little farther and saw he was laying on his back with his mouth open and his arm was up in the air. So.
The murder investigation was assigned to Detective Robert Jenkins of the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety. One of the first things Detective Jenkins did after he arrived at the scene was to have Karen Raymond do a walkthrough of the bike shop and see if anything was out of place. Here's what he wrote in his report.
Mrs. Raymond checked the immediate office area and advised me that she thought the following items were missing from the top of the desk. 2 cup of Lipton soup boxes that had coins in them, also a black money pouch and another money pouch with the name Safari written on it, tan and green in color. We are assuming at this time that these items are missing. However, due to the business practices of Mr. O'Byrne, it would not be surprising if these items turned up in the future.
The bank bags and coin boxes had been stolen. This gave investigators a motive for the crime, a robbery gone wrong.
You know, there was no evidence that somebody broke in. That's the only thing, too. And we still haven't figured out how they got in the building.
He opened the door for someone.
He would have had to, because he put that bar across there every night. A bar that came across the door so you couldn't come in. It was like a security door. So he had to open that door for somebody. And why he would have let them in unless he knew them, but...
Is there anyone he would have opened the door for?
That was another question we had. Did somebody come there that he knew that he opened the door for? And he would have had to know him to open that door. He wouldn't just open it for a stranger.
Lori thought the only way someone could have gotten inside the bike shop was if Earl had let them in. But Karen told us she had another theory.
In my mind, I always thought they must have hid inside.
At closing? Mm-hmm. So they were there until everyone else left?
And honestly, you could have so easily. You know, you feel a little guilty because did we look close enough? Did we look at everything?
Someone had gotten into the bike shop and assaulted Earl in a cramped hallway. Earl had tried to fight back. There were extensive defense-type injuries to both hands. He also had 3 broken ribs on his right side. That wasn't what had killed him, though. Here's what the medical examiner wrote in his autopsy report.
It is our belief that death is due to blunt force injury to the head, with the mechanics of death being largely loss of blood from the multiple scalp lacerations. The blunt force was applied with insufficient force to inflict great injury. As it was commonly believed that this man kept large amounts of money in his store and/or residence, we suggest that he was essentially tortured in an attempt to learn the places in which such money may have been hidden.
The part there about Earl O'Byrne essentially being tortured to death, I want to note that this was the medical examiner's speculation. There's no explicit evidence showing that's what happened, it's just another possible theory. But it does emphasize that Earl's wounds don't seem to have been inflicted by someone who started off trying to kill him. In fact, the wounds were not immediately fatal. When the killer left the bike shop, Earl had still been alive. The story told at Scott Baldwin's trial in 2001 was that Earl must have waited for Scott to leave, and then made his way to the storefront. There, Earl had locked the 3 deadbolts, but did not slide the steel bar into place, and then returned to his residence, where he locked himself inside with 3 more deadbolts. Then he laid down in the piles of newspapers and died in his sleep. That's why, when employees Lori Scott and James Long arrived for work the next morning, all the deadbolts had been locked up again.
That's another thing we can't understand, is how was he able to lock that door if he was so incapacitated? You know, that, I mean, you get hit 8 times in the head, that's going to cause some problems.
They said that he probably wasn't in his right mind. Like, some things would be automatic, almost a muscle memory, like he would just do because he's done them so long.
But wouldn't he automatically lock the sliding arm too?
I would have thought. But my question was, why didn't he call 911? He went right by a phone to go to his bedroom.
After the assault, Earl O'Byrne had at least 2 chances to call for help. The bloody paper towel roll found on his desk had been laying right on top of a working phone, and bloodstains on his bed of newspapers show that at some point he'd been right next to a second phone that he'd kept there. Earl hadn't called anyone, though. That's something that Karen has always wondered about.
The answer I got was that there's some things when you're hit in the head like that so many times, he didn't think to call. He might not have known how badly he was injured.
There were some strange details about the crime scene at the bike shop. But later on, after I'd begun looking into some of the other cases covered by the cold case team, I was struck by how similar the bike shop murder was to another cold case. One that happened 12 years later, in August of 2000. Marinus and Sori Polderman were in their 90s and lived out in a rural section of Kalamazoo County. Their bodies were found in the basement of their farmhouse, along with the body of their 63-year-old daughter, who had stopped by that day to drop off groceries for them. Both cases involved elderly people beaten to death inside their own homes, with no sign of a break-in, and all doors carefully locked up after the crime was committed. These cases are so intertwined by facts, by people, by misconduct.
They are factually similar. So much so that one of my students in the Baldwin case said, if you're doing DNA testing in the Polderman murders, you better compare the O'Byrne DNA.
That's Olivia Vigiletti again, Scott Baldwin's attorney with the Michigan Innocence Clinic. Olivia is also the attorney for Joe Lewis, who was one of the 5 people convicted of killing the Poldermans. We sat down to talk to Olivia about both cases and all of the strange overlaps between them. After Scott had mentioned the Polderman case to us, we'd gotten interested in learning more about it.
What do you know about the Polderman case?
Joe Williams was one of the guys that was convicted of it, brought his transcripts out and showed everybody.
Joe Williams and Scott Baldwin met in prison. They'd run into each other by chance and figured out that both of them were from Kalamazoo, and that they'd both been convicted by the Kalamazoo cold case team.
Swears up and down he didn't do it. He said he was innocent and he got set up by people.
In many ways, the bike shop case and the Polderman murders were very similar crimes. According to the Kalamazoo cold case team, both had been burglary attempts that had gone wrong.
The difference, though, the Poldermans is so out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
That's a weird place to,
I was surprised when I first saw photos of the outside of the house. I was expecting something way more lavish, like a big farmhouse, like a big, this person has deep farm money farmhouse. But it was a modest home.
You don't drive by that house and think, oh, those people have got some money.
No.
Neither the bike shop nor the Polderman's farmhouse had the appearance of wealth, but they had something else in common. Everyone always said they had millions of dollars hidden in that bike shop. The neighbors said that about the Poldermans. The Poldermans, like Earl O'Byrne, were rumored to have kept cash inside their house. In the bike shop case, the cold case team thought it was Scott Baldwin who had gotten inside to try and steal the hidden money. In the Polderman case, the cold case team had convicted 5 people in all. Joe Williams, 2 other men, a 19-year-old woman, and a 17-year-old girl, who were all accused of committing the crime together. Though, in both cases, it wasn't clear how the killers had gotten inside.
There's no sign of forced entry, but they went to this house and they decided to rob them with their bare hands. If this is just a robbery, why do you go in unarmed and use items from their own house?
In the bike shop case, the officer who examined the crime scene had concluded that Earl O'Byrne was beaten to death with a bicycle tire rim that was found in the hallway where the assault had occurred. Bloody fingerprints were found on the tire rim, but never identified. And in the Polderman case, investigators concluded that an ice spud and a baseball bat taken from the Polderman's garage had been used to kill the victims. And, near the ice spud, 2 pieces of a torn latex glove were found, and both pieces had DNA from the same unknown male, who was never identified. That's another similarity between these 2 cases. Physical evidence was found at both crime scenes. DNA, fingerprints, shoe prints, but none of that was ever linked to any of the people who were ultimately convicted. Not to Scott Baldwin, and not to any of the 5 convicted in the Polderman case. To this day, no one knows who that DNA or those fingerprints belong to. And here's something that almost all of the cold cases have in common. With one exception, the cold case team never used physical evidence to solve cases. Instead, mostly they used confessions. Either confessions made by the defendants themselves while being interrogated, or through witnesses who testified that they'd once heard the defendant confess, either to themselves or someone else. The cold case team was very effective at closing out cases this way.
We know that this cold case team is famous for solving the unsolvable murders, and we have to ask ourselves, well, are they just better at solving murder, or are they more committed to getting the conviction than they are to accuracy. And I think more and more, as more cases come out of Kalamazoo, we're seeing that perhaps it was the latter.
We were curious about a lot of those cases. But because of what Scott had told us, we now knew the Polderman case was one we needed to learn more about as well. I think he'd appreciate that what happened to him might at least benefit someone else.
Yeah, he told me that. We only talked a few times because I came in so close to the end. He said, I know this is bigger than me.
At both the Polderman's farmhouse and at the bike shop, the doors had been carefully locked up again after the crimes were committed. In the bike shop case, the cold case team ultimately concluded that Earl O'Byrne himself had locked all the doors after the killer had left, but before he'd succumbed to his injuries. But what if it hadn't been Earl who locked up? Could the killer have done it on their way out? If so, then it had to be someone with their own set of keys, because Earl's keys were found inside with him.
Do you know what employees had keys to the building?
Well, myself for one, Karen, James. There was 3 of us that had keys at the time.
There were 3 employees that had keys to all 6 of the deadbolts that were found locked. Lori Scott, Karen Raymond, and James Long.
I mean, I would think we would all have been suspects. And I guess I'm being recorded. I should have been as well. I had keys.
Yeah. In fact, we all had to get fingerprinted and everything because we had the keys.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And lie detector test.
Yeah. What was that experience like?
Not fun. No, it was all right. I mean, we all passed.
The 3 employees with keys were all questioned and polygraphed. All 3 passed. No deception indicated. They were cleared of any suspicion, which did not leave detectives much to go on, until an eyewitness came forward.
I heard about it the next day, and that's when I called the city and said, hey, I saw the owner last night on my way home.
I mean, it kind of seems like you saw him right before he was killed.
Unfortunately, I think so.
In 1988, Officer Harold West was a patrol officer in Kalamazoo Township. On the night Earl O'Byrne was killed, Officer West had driven past the bike shop at about 12:45 a.m. on his way home from work.
I've done my shift. I'm off. All I'm thinking about is going home and having a beer. And I happened to pull up to the stop sign across from where the shop was. And the thing that struck me as odd is that it was night. And, the lights were on and he's standing in the doorway.
Earl O'Byrne was standing in the open doorway of the bike shop, his arms crossed over his chest, a ball cap on his head. And Earl wasn't alone. A second man was there too. He was walking away from the building, and Earl was watching him.
A male walking as if he was walking around the building. I could tell that he was a white male. I could tell that he was blonde hair. I just happened to see it. There was nothing going on for me to really pay close attention.
Obviously, you did remember it. Like, it caught your eye for some reason.
Because it was late. That's kind of late for a bicycle shop.
Did he seem distressed to you, or?
Nothing was going on. If there was an argument or something of that nature, I would have paid better attention.
Officer West only got a brief look at the man that was with Earl O'Byrne outside of the bike shop that night. White man, blonde hair, average build. Not too young, not too old. Maybe in his 20s. He was wearing a brown jacket, one that West described as a bush coat, and he had on white or light-colored pants.
I could see the silhouette, and because of how high the pants were, I could tell that his pants were tucked into his boots.
There was a car there, too. It was pulled up in the alley next to the bike shop entrance. It was lightish in color, tan or beige or cream, and West thought it had 4 square headlights. There was no one in the car that West could see, but the driver's side door was open. It's as if the blonde man had pulled up to the entrance, hopped out of the car, and left the keys in the ignition while he walked north, away from both the car and from where Earl O'Byrne stood in the doorway.
Like, why is a guy walking back behind the shop?
Well, he was walking north in front of the building.
But to what? There's nothing there. There's a railroad track. That's it.
No. I've run it through my mind a couple of times. Was that the killer that I saw?
If it was the killer, though, that Earl didn't know it, because he could have just shut the door and locked it.
Correct. I didn't get the sense that anything was going on. You know, again, as a police officer, you look for those things where there's some kind of conflict.
By chance, Officer West was not the only person who saw Earl O'Byrne that night.
Do you know the name Tom Coyne?
Not right offhand.
Are you aware of his statements in this case?
No, I have not read any of the statements. I haven't read any other reports involving this other than my own.
There was a second witness who'd driven by the bike shop late that night, at around 12:45 a.m., the witness said, the same time that Officer West thought he'd driven by. This witness didn't see the blonde man, but he did see Earl O'Byrne.
Like you, he was just driving home, and he saw Earl gone outside and was looking north upwards, as if he was trying to see the man that you saw. So you weren't the only one to see him out there that night.
Yeah, I think it would have caught people's attention because it was so late at night. Yeah.
But it definitely confirms what you saw.
Yeah. That's too bad.
So here's a report that was written by a police officer who happened to be driving past the shop that night.
Oh, yeah, I remember there was somebody that...
We showed Karen the reports from Officer Harold West and the other witness who'd seen Earl outside the shop that night. She'd heard about the reports, but had never seen the exact details before.
That's how they knew the time frame, because I think he said the door was open, didn't he?
Yep. Does that surprise you?
Yeah.
So it's 2 witnesses, both called in and said they saw Earl out of the shop at 12:45 that night. One saw the blonde man walking north towards the tracks and the tan car with the square headlights.
But both saw Earl.
Both saw Earl out of the shop, yeah.
Can you turn that off?
Yeah. Seeing the eyewitness report of someone with Earl on the night he was killed had been a lot for Karen to take in. Because whoever it was never came forward to acknowledge being there. And Scott Baldwin did not match the description of the man Officer West saw, who had blonde hair and a cream or tan-colored car. One thing that stood out to us is that Scott Baldwin has, like, jet black hair.
Oh.
Which...
contradicts what I saw.
Yeah. And the car he was driving was a forest green ragtop Jeep Wrangler.
A Jeep. Oh, I would have. That was not a Jeep that I saw. No, that was not a Jeep. I'm a Jeep guy.
So who was the blonde man? And why had Earl O'Byrne open the door for him? Many of the bike shop employees we talked to told us that they had the same questions.
Did you ever wonder, question if they got the right person? Did it ever cross your mind?
No, I do, because it was so weird that 13 years later, this just comes up. Yeah, we always wondered. I had never known him to open that door for anybody, unless he knew who they were. So.
Of all the bike shop employees, it was Karen Raymond who was most familiar with Earl O'Byrne and his habits.
Okay, we're recording again?
Is there any reason someone would be there late at night that Earl would go outside and meet?
Absolutely not. He didn't have friends. He didn't have acquaintances. He didn't have anybody outside the business. Earl didn't go outside just to go outside for a walk or to check on things. He was very untrusting. I always wondered, of course, and I had my suspicions like everybody else, It just didn't make sense.
Detective Harold West's sighting of Earl O'Byrne and the blonde man was the first and last big break in the case that the original investigators got. That's not to say they didn't have any leads, though. They had a lot of leads, maybe too many, in part because of a local businessman named Jim Gilmore. He started running ads in the Kalamazoo Gazette offering a substantial reward for information in the case.
I was going to ask, like, the reward that Gilmore put up, why did he do that?
I think as a community service, Jim's was a big part of the community, and he realized that Earl was a big part of the community too.
I mean, in a way, it's kind of an attack on Kalamazoo, to attack this fixture who's been there forever.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, the reward was $15,000. But as the months ticked by without the case being solved, the reward grew until it reached a total of $75,000. That's over $200,000 in today's money. That got people's attention. Kalamazoo's anonymous crime tip line, called Silent Observer, received well over 100 calls from people who had information they thought might be important, or information that they hoped might be important and could earn them the $75,000. One of those tips was called in on June 23, 1989. So, an entire year after Earl's murder, the caller claimed to know who had committed the murder at the bike shop. The tip sheet read,
Scott Baldwin admitted to murdering O'Byrne that night. Caller was given this info by a female. She said he came home covered in blood.
The female in question was Scott Baldwin's girlfriend, Stacy, or rather his ex-girlfriend. Stacy and Scott had broken up by that time. So, back in 1989, the police took Stacy in for questioning.
So they take me and they grill me. I mean, they hook me up to a lie detector test.
And so you take the polygraph, they don't seem interested.
No.
And
nothing.
You don't hear anything else about it?
Nothing. They were basically like, you can go now. I mean, it was all very rude. I didn't understand why they weren't taking me serious. They thought I was in for the money, I guess.
Stacy didn't hear anything more about the case after that. Not until November of 2000, when the cold case team reopened the investigation.
It was like 12 years later. I remember walking in the door, and my mom's like, this detective from Kalamazoo just called. Just wanted to talk about Scott Baldwin. I'm like, okay. All right. Wow. Are you serious? You gonna listen to me now? Okay. Let's do this.
Next week on Proof.
So I told her, I said, save us the time and money. If this is not true, tell me now. She goes, no, it's 100% true.
And I remember I looked at his feet and there were spots of thick blood on his boots. I'm talking blood splatters that just are so big and thick I'm like gonna vomit.
Her calling the police saying Scott was just driving down the road with me and he confessed that he did this murder. Wait a minute, it's impossible.
You've been listening to Proof, a podcast by Red Marble Media, in association with Glassbox Media. We'll be back next Monday with episode 3. Send us your questions and comments at proofcrimepod@gmail.com. We'll respond during our bonus episodes, Proof Sidebar, on Thursdays. Kevin Fitzpatrick is our executive producer. Our theme music is by Ramiro Marquez. Audio production for this episode is by Michael Ulatowski, Michael Alfano, and Jesus Orbaez. Our social media manager is Leanne Cook. And thank you to our sponsors who make this podcast possible. Follow us everywhere with the handle @ProofCrimePod and on our website, proofcrimepod.com. And lastly, a note to our listeners. If you have any information related to this case or any of the cases we've covered, we'd love to speak to you, no matter how small of a detail it may seem. It just might be more important than you realize. You can reach us by email or leave us a voicemail at 347-985-0794. That's all for this week. Thanks so much for listening.